You have been waking up wrong your entire life. And the extraordinary thing is, your own biology has been trying to tell you how to fix it every single morning. Think about this for a moment. Before you ever open your eyes in the morning, before the first thought surfaces, before your hand reaches instinctively for your phone, your body has already been doing something ancient and extraordinary. It has been reading the light. Inside each of your cells lives a mechanism so precise, so elegant, that it tracks not just time, but the quality of time. Scientists call this the circadian clock, a biological timekeeper woven into nearly every organ, every tissue, every hormonal conversation your body has with itself. And the master conductor of this entire symphony sits in a tiny cluster of neurons behind your eyes called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It is no larger than a grain of rice, yet it governs when your body makes energy, when it repairs, when it feels genuinely awake. When you deny this system its first signal, natural light, you are essentially handing a maestro a broken baton. The orchestra does not know when to begin. Cortisol, your body's primary waking hormone, rises sluggishly. Melatonin, which should be retreating by dawn, lingers like fog that refuses to lift. And you wonder why, after 8 hours of sleep, you still feel as though you have been dragged through something heavy and unforgiving. The most powerful energy switch in your body is not a supplement, not a cold shower, not a stimulant. It is a photon of morning light landing on your retina within the first 10 minutes of waking. So the first shift begins with something devastatingly simple. You go outside. You let the real sky touch your eyes. Not through glass, not through the filtered blue glow of a screen, but the open breathing sky of early morning, carrying a spectrum of light that no artificial source has yet learned. Now here is something that seems counterintuitive, even slightly cruel, when you first hear it. The fastest way to generate internal warmth, metabolic warmth, cellular warmth, the kind of warmth that translates into sustained mental clarity and physical readiness, is to expose yourself to cold. Humans evolved in environments far less temperature-controlled than the modern bedroom. Our ancestors woke into cool mornings, moved into cold streams, felt the bracing contact of an unchosen world. And the body, brilliant adaptive organism that it is, developed a remarkable response to this challenge. When cold water meets your skin, your sympathetic nervous system activates in a way that is fundamentally different from stress or fear. It releases a cascade of norepinephrine, a neurochemical that in healthy concentrations sharpens attention. It elevates mood and ignites something called thermogenesis in brown adipose tissue. Brown fat is not the enemy, it is a furnace. Unlike white fat, which quietly stores energy and waits, brown fat burns it, and it burns it specifically in response to cold exposure, generating heat from the inside out in a process so metabolically active that researchers have compared its output, gram for gram, to the intensity of cardiac muscle. A brief cold exposure, just 60 to 90 seconds of genuinely cool water, is enough to activate this system meaningfully. And what accompanies that activation is not just warmth and norepinephrine, it is something that reshapes your entire neurological relationship with discomfort itself. Every morning you choose the cold, you are quietly training your nervous system to remain composed under pressure and to breathe through resistance rather than collapse beneath it, to understand at a cellular level that difficulty is not. You are not torturing yourself with cold water. You are lighting a biological furnace that your modern heated world has quietly been allowing to go cold, and your energy levels have been paying the price every single day. We move now from light to temperature to something so fundamental that its neglect explains a staggering proportion of the fatigue, the brain fog, the mid-morning crashes that modern people have simply accepted as normal. I am talking about water, but not water as you probably think about it. When you wake after 7 or 8 hours of sleep, you have gone without fluid intake for the longest uninterrupted period of your waking life. Your cells have been metabolically active throughout the night. Your brain, which is approximately 75% water, has been consolidating memory, regulating hormone production, and conducting the cellular maintenance work that can only happen during sleep. All of this costs water. By morning, most people are in a state of mild hypovolemia, a slight reduction in blood plasma volume that affects virtually every cognitive and physical process your body attempts. A brain even minimally dehydrated, studies suggest as little as 1 to 2% below optimal, experiences measurable drops in working memory, reaction time, and the capacity to sustain focused attention. Yet we roll out of bed, reach for coffee, a mild diuretic that pulls fluid from the very system it claims to awaken, and genuinely wonder why our thinking feels like wading through something thick and resistant. The single most overlooked energy nutrient in the human body is not a vitamin, not a mineral, not an adaptogen sold in elegant packaging. It is the water you are not drinking in the first 10 minutes of your morning, and while your cells are quietly and urgently asking for it. So you drink before anything else enters the body. 500 milliliters, 2 full glasses, before the coffee, before the food, before the first notification pulls your attention outward into the world's demands. Some people add a small pinch of sea salt, not for ceremony, not for ritual, but because sodium and the trace electrolytes carried within unrefined salt genuinely improve the rate at which your intestinal cells absorb fluid, activating the sodium-glucose co-transporter pathways that pull water across the gut lining and into circulation with a speed and efficiency that plain water alone cannot always. The single most overlooked energy nutrient in the human body is not a vitamin, not a mineral, and not an adaptogen. It is the water you are not drinking in the first 10 minutes of your morning, while your cells are quietly screaming for it. There is a peculiar tyranny in the modern relationship with exercise. We have turned it into a scheduled event, something that happens at a gym at a specific hour, in proper clothes, with proper music and a proper plan. And because it carries all this weight of logistics and willpower, we defer it. We say we will do it later. And later becomes evening, and evening becomes tomorrow, and tomorrow quietly becomes never. But the body does not need a gym at 6 in the morning. What it needs, what the science consistently and rather insistently points toward, is a signal, a relatively brief but purposeful movement signal that communicates to your metabolic and hormonal systems that the day is real, that the body is needed, that energy is required now and not at some hypothetical later hour that may never actually arrive. When you move with any degree of intention in the morning, even a 10-minute walk at a pace that slightly elevates your breathing, even 10 minutes of body weight movement on the floor of your own living room, your muscles begin releasing molecules called myokines. These are signaling proteins, extraordinarily intelligent in their reach, that travel through the bloodstream carrying instructions to organs far removed from the muscles that produced them. To your brain, they encourage the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein so essential to cognitive function, to neuroplasticity, to the brain's capacity to form new connections and dissolve old rigid ones, that some neuroscientists have taken to calling it fertilizer for the thinking mind. To your liver and fat cells, myokines send upregulating instructions that improve the body's capacity to mobilize stored fuel and oxidize it cleanly for sustained energy rather than the volatile peaks and crashes that follow stimulant-dependent mornings. To your gut, they improve motility and the quality of nutrient absorption, meaning that whatever you choose to eat after moving will be more completely and efficiently used by a body that has already declared itself open for business. 10 minutes of morning movement does not just burn a negligible handful of calories. It rewrites the biochemical instructions your body operates on for the next 6 to 8 hours, and no gym membership, no elaborate fitness plan, no expensive equipment is required to deliver that signal with full biological force. And there is also something that resists pure quantification but deserves to be named honestly. The way that moving your body deliberately in the early morning, inhabiting it consciously rather than dragging it reluctantly through the first hour of the day, shifts your entire psychological relationship with what lies ahead. You are no longer a mind that has reluctantly separated itself from sleep and stumbled into wakefulness. You become something more integrated, more present, more genuinely inhabiting the body you will spend the entire day living inside. The philosophy and the physiology converge here in a place that data can point toward but cannot fully. 10 minutes of morning movement does not just burn a negligible handful of calories, it rewrites the biochemical instructions your body operates on for the next 6 to 8 hours. How the gym session matters less than this signal. We arrive now at the element of the morning routine that people most often dismiss as soft, as luxury, as the quiet indulgence of people with too much time and too little urgency. I want to argue, with considerable scientific weight behind me, that it is in fact the most potent of all the practices we have discussed, and the one most catastrophically and routinely sacrificed in the modern morning without any real awareness of what is being lost in that sacrifice. The brain you wake with is not the same brain you had at noon yesterday. During the later stages of sleep, particularly during REM cycles, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of judgment, creativity, emotional regulation, and the kind of complex decision-making that determines the actual quality of your life, undergoes a remarkable process of synaptic consolidation and selective pruning that leaves it, upon waking, in a state of genuinely extraordinary receptivity. Neuroscientists sometimes describe this condition as hypnopompic openness, a window of neurological flexibility that exists briefly between sleep and full wakefulness, during which the associative networks of the brain are more fluidly connected, more creatively available, more capable of the kind of lateral and non-linear thinking from which genuine insight tends to emerge. And what do we do with this extraordinary cognitive state? This rare and unrepeatable window that arrives fresh every single morning without being asked. We immediately flood it with notifications, with headlines, with the accumulated anxieties and competing urgencies of other people's unfinished business. We pour the noise and velocity of the entire world into a vessel that was, for a brief and genuinely precious window, perfectly shaped and perfectly quiet enough to receive something of far greater value. The first information your waking brain consumes does not simply occupy a moment of your morning. It sets the neurological tone, the emotional register, the attentional baseline upon which your entire cognitive day is constructed. What you feed that open and receptive mind in the first 20 minutes is not trivial, not a matter of personal preference or lifestyle aesthetics. It is architectural in the most literal biological sense of that word. The practice of morning silence, even 10 to 15 minutes of sitting without input, without agenda, without the compulsion to produce something or consume something or signal your productivity to a world that is not yet watching, has been associated in research with measurable reductions in cortisol reactivity, with improvements in what neuroscientists call default mode network coherence, and with enhanced capacity for insight thinking, the non-linear associative cognition from which our most original ideas, our most honest self-understanding, and our deepest and most sustainable sense of direction tend to quietly and unexpectedly surface. This is not meditation as performance or spiritual theater. It is not a productivity strategy dressed in the borrowed clothing of ancient contemplative traditions. It is something simpler and more honest than either of those things. It is the recognition that the mind, like the body, like every living system that has ever existed on this planet, needs a moment to arrive at itself before it is asked to navigate the extraordinary complexity and relentless demand of a modern human day. To sit in silence in the morning is not passivity. It is not the absence of something. It is the presence of something so quiet and so essential that the noise of ordinary life makes it almost impossible to hear. A kind of foundational intelligence that lives beneath thought, beneath reaction, beneath the performed version of yourself that the world has learned to expect, and that your own nervous system, given even the smallest invitation of stillness, will begin quite naturally and almost tenderly to. The first information your waking brain consumes does not just occupy a moment of your morning, it sets the neurological tone for your entire cognitive day. What you feed that open, receptive mind in the first 20 minutes is not trivial. It is architectural.